Hello, hello, hello. This is Thundercat, and I'll be guiding you through the People's Epstein Client List, Part 2, entries 11 through 13. Now, these are some heavy hitters, so let's go into it right now. Flavio Briatore was a multi-billionaire in... Flavio Briatore was a billionaire Formula One manager in Italian business, and he used to hold what they called billionaire parties. Now, what's wrong with a billionaire party? They get together, they're rich friends, a bunch of models, dance, do a lot of illegal substances, good times all around, except he was friends with one Naomi Campbell. Now, if you don't know, Naomi Campbell was a multi-million-dollar model who Epstein recruited to recruit girls into his agency. So he'd go up to the girls and be like, I'm very successful as a model. Don't you want to become a model too? But it was all a ruse. See, one of the big parties that he hosted was a birthday party for Naomi Campbell, which included many of Epstein's disciples in a club in Monaco. And that club was also tied to a hotel. Now, this is important because Naomi Campbell, a lot of her allegations come from hotels, meaning this man directly paid for and organized events where Epstein and his accomplices were taking advantage of young girls. He also owns and advises an F1 Alpine team. Now, what's wrong with that? Well, that same Alpine team had a lot of its members exposed, like people like Sarah Kellen, for their ties to Epstein. So not only is his friends in the billionaire business scene part of this, also his friends in the F1 race were also connected to this as well. Now, one of the other things he was convicted with was fraud. He's a big old fraudster, frauding the Italian government. One of the big things he did was he made payments to Italian politicians who then gave grace to a lot of his fraud, and he was never ever arrested or tried for any of these things, which leads me to believe he had several connections or maybe blackmail on Italian politicians. So this is our first guy, billionaire clubs, billionaire parties, not a good guy whatsoever. He was also involved in something called Crashgate, where he told an F1 racer to purposely crash into another, and all this other stuff is why Flavio Briatore is on the Epstein list. Next on our list is Leon Black. Now, Leon Black owed something called the Apollo Investment Group, and he also had all these different investment groups. Now, those ones are responsible, by the way, for the same hedge funds that are currently working tirelessly to destroy our lives and liberties. I want to stress that because he paid over 30 times what would be paid for a tax consultant to Epstein. And on top of that, he also paid $10 million to Epstein with a sham 510c tax-exempt charity. Now, this is something I want to stress. These guys would use charities as a shield. They would use the charity to move money around that they didn't want people to see. That's why whenever you hear a billionaire being a charitable philanthropist, a lot of that money is just going right back into their horrible actions. Now, he was overpaid $141 million by a family trust. Now, that should be illegal, but that was never investigated by the FBI or the IRS, and it makes you wonder. It's probably because he was buddies with the guy that had blackmail on everybody. He also paid millions of dollars to either hire the girls or give them hush money so that they wouldn't speak out about Epstein and his crimes. He was also big. You can go through the emails. He was also going through and constantly asking Epstein for advice on what to do whenever new news came out about their horrible crimes. And he did this, by the way, when Epstein was already convicted for his crimes against children from Florida. And now Epstein provided the Russian government with the location of women that were on Black's payroll, and that's just a little suspicious, man. Why would you need to know the people that were on Leo Black's payroll? Well, you see, Leo Black was getting his investment firm, Apollo Investments, with the executive Stephanie Dredster, to donate to the governor of Ohio's campaign. Now, why is that important? Well, the governor of Ohio is the same place where Columbus University was being held. Now, Epstein and Les Wexner both had massive influence in Columbus, Ohio, and if you didn't know, it has one of the highest rates of missing persons of any university in the United States. And all that to be said, he was the one that funded its operation. He was the one that paid them millions of dollars. And what I would assume, and this is just a theory, this is just a fan theory, but if you wanted to pay for an underage girl, you wouldn't do it just blatantly. You'd go through Leon Black. You'd give Leon Black some money through his investment group, and then he'd give that money to Epstein through gifts and hiring and consultant fees, because that's how you do it when you're trying to do something illegal. You say consulting. Brad Carp was the head of Paul, Weiss, Rifkind, Wharton, and Garrison law firm. Now remember, these law firms are massive law firms in New York. They have a lot of sway and a lot of power. This was actually one of the law firms, funny enough, that Trump had went after, and they tried to cry and be like, oh no, we're being oppressed. Let's get into it. See, there was a bunch of documents released on July 2015 where an email once said that Carp had a once-in-a-lifetime experience and he was thanking him for a time he would never forget. Epstein responded that Carp was always welcome and that there were many nights of unique talents. You will be invited often. Why would he be invited often, you might ask? Because Carp's law firm knowingly spied on victims for Epstein. That's right, a U.S. law firm, one of the biggest ones in our country, was spying on our citizens for Epstein. In February of 2019, Carp emailed Epstein seeking advice on behalf of John Havens, a former Citigroup president who, according to Carp's messages, needed immediate help because his name came out in connection to one of Epstein's massage parlors in Florida. Both Kraft and Havens were among 300 men accused of being patrons in the massage parlors engaging in prostitution. Now remember, a lot of those girls were so young and some of them were non-consensual. So back to our last video with Woody Allen. He was actually invited to a lot of those parties, and in a 2018 email, he's sitting there saying, oh yeah, I'll be right back in. I just gotta go take a video conference call. Imagine being the man in a conference call with a person going to take advantage of kids in a dinner party. This is one of the worst people in there. So whenever Epstein or one of his buddies got in trouble, Brad Carp was right there to protect them, which is why this pudgy, balding man is being put on the Epstein file. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to give me a follow or subscribe to support, and I'll have the next one out about Friday. So in case I don't see you, be kind, be good. Ciao.